Aloha cupcakes. Today I've done a time lapse where I've actually sped up the process so you can see it, and we're going to paint a rat fink. So hopefully this helps you figure it out. I'm starting with a medium green that's had a little bit of yellow added to it, not a lot, and it's just a goopy looking, gnarly green. It really doesn't matter how nasty you make the green, just make sure that you get all of the spots where the fink should be. That includes the feet, the tail, the face, obviously, and don't forget those arms. Now, just remember that I do this a little bit differently. I know a lot of people will tell you that you need to start with the lighter color and then work to your darker colors, or start with your lighter color or darker colors, work to your lighter, depending on how it is that you're processing this. I'm working with enamel. So we can come in with a secondary color like I'm doing right here, and it can be dark. And then I can still do a tertiary color on top of that that is a lighter color. It really, the sloppier you do this, the better it will turn out. Just trust me on this one. I will say though, when you are painting a rat fink, it is important to get these dirty, grimy colors. So don't be afraid to throw a little red into your green and make it that more brownish color. It kind of adds to the fact that it's a rat fink. Like, I don't know another way to express that. He's supposed to be grimy. He's supposed to be dirty. He's supposed to look like he smells. There should be literally nothing pleasant about a rat fink. It should just be all bad. So, like, when I go in and I do these little details, yes, I'm trying to associate where light should be coming from while I'm doing it, but ultimately, it does not matter. Just make it gnarly looking. Because not only is he supposed to just be slimy and gross and dirty, it's super important that he's not as logical as true art should be. Like, stop overthinking it, basically. Let it be nasty. Let it be grimy. Let it be dirty. Let it not look right. Let light sort of almost have a value to it, and then completely not. Like for this one right here, I've added an intentionally just overtly yellow. Actually, no, that's not yellow at all. I'm using Doug Doors green on this one. Yay! Shout out to Doug. If you don't know about him, he's a good dude. But he's also the one who's developed this color, which it's probably one of the thickest paints you will find coming from Alpha 6. Yes, I know maroon exists. However, Doors Green, extra super thick and gloppy. Now, once I've got about three colors on this, I start working on the lettering. And the reason that I do the lettering for this is because I want the lettering to be done in a way where it's still wet when I come in and do the reds. That'll make sense when you actually see it, because you want it to bleed just a little bit so that when you come in and do the black outlines on it, it has a little bit of a shadow to it. Because I want you to understand that while this is sped up, the duration of time it takes for me to paint one of these rat finks is generally under an hour. And it's kind of the whole point, because if I'm doing a rat fink for somebody, I am doing one probably live. Like, it's not like I went to a shop and we scheduled an appointment. This is typically only done at shows, or if I'm doing one like for someone, I do it as a gift. So these are things that I work on in my shop, but the faster I do them and the more methodical I am with how I do them, the better they turn out. Like, it's more of like an organic process to it. It's not like your normal artwork where you try not to do these things and you want perfection. So the little bit of color bleed, you can kind of see it right there in the red. That's what I'm looking for. And it's a small detail, but when it comes right down to it, details actually matter. I know it doesn't seem like it sometimes, and I definitely don't seem like the kind of person who acts like that. But when it comes to certain parts of my artwork, there are certain specific things that I do, and it's because there used to be this guy named Ed. Some of you guys know him as Big Daddy. I didn't. I just knew this dude as Ed, and when I watched him do this, it was the least thought out thing I'd ever seen. Whether it was airbrush, whether it was him doing it with a paintbrush, whether it was him doing it with Sharpies, he didn't put a whole lot of thought in it. He just went for it and just let it be whatever it ended up being. And I try to emulate that as much as possible because I'm doing his design. So, yeah, let it just do its thing. Now, I probably could have gone a little bit darker with that red for the outline on this one, in hindsight. Because when I'm looking at this and I'm actually working on it, I don't actually see the same thing this camera does, and apparently the camera caught something that I didn't just now. We're going to ignore that, though, because we're just going to pretend like everything was intentional, which, honestly, like, half of it is. The other half, I just kind of get lucky sometimes. Now, when you're working on the teeth, there's a number of different things that I think need to get mentioned when you're doing the teeth. I don't always use white. In fact, I'm using ivory on this, and I've added just a little bit of the red to it. So it's got a little bit of a pinkish tint to it. That's not for any intelligent reason. I do it just because I know I'm going to come in and accent more, and I'm going to add a little bit more red to do more pink, because I'm going to do these gums. The gums, a lot of people, when they're painting Rat Finks, they tend to leave them out, but it just adds to the griminess of the whole thing. It adds to the sticky nature of his slimy-ass mouth. And I like to add it into the eyeballs just because, seriously, if you're going to have that many blood vessels in an eyeball, it probably has a little red going on in the rest of it. So, now a couple things that I do with this color is I like to just throw it in wherever I think like a highlight would be. So whatever the lighter color I use on the teeth usually gets thrown in somewhere on like the shoulder or on the lettering in this case. And I think I kind of accent it just a little bit too much with it. And just about that point where you think you've added too much of it, you're good. And I know that doesn't make sense, but it's not supposed to make sense. There's not a whole lot of rationality going here. You're supposed to make a mess. So like these black lines that I come in, those are not fine lines. I am using I forget what this brush is. This is one of the Alpha 6 brushes that it's frays out and it flares quite a bit so that it pulls these really like dense lines that pull into very sharp lines. And I like to overload the brush so that I get these weird deficiencies in the lines. And I know that that's a very small detail, but these deficiencies are what makes the Rat Fink, especially when you're getting into like the teeth area. And you'll see it here in a little bit where what I do is I dry brush it and I just pull these little nasty lines just across where the shadows would be in them. And even just these detail lines, when you're looking at them, there are deficiencies at the tips of every one of these teeth. And they're little tiny things that if you were a dentist, you'd call it a cavity. But when I'm working on this, I want those deficiencies to be pronounced. I want them to be there. And I know that that is not what you are typically trying to do when you're painting things, but again, this is Rat Fink. We don't want perfection. We want ickiness. So like even in the little deficiencies that are right here in the nose, it's not a perfect egg shape. I know that it's drawn to be, and I know that a lot of people will try to make it as round as possible, but it needs to have a little bit of an arch that's just slightly off. I think that these things are important. Now the ears, I always mess up the ears, like that spot right there. Because even though I've got reference guides everywhere, I've got tons and tons of Rat Fink stuff all around the house and the shop, and there's a giant flag of Rat Fink directly behind me as I'm saying this. I don't actually use them as a reference. I just kind of go. I guess it kind of works for me. I don't know. I try not to think too terribly much when I'm doing this. Now, this is the part where I start working on the eyes. And just like with the hairs, just don't overthink it. Just fill it in as much as you feel like it needs to be filled in and let it be exposed. It's just so much quicker to do it this way rather than try to fill in the details. With that, I think you should be about done. I hope you're done with it. The last part, I would say you can throw in some blood vessels. I like to go outside of the border of the eyes because it's fun. Now, I hope this helps you with some degree of efficiency and accuracy while you try to paint your Rat Finks. I hope that this is something that you're going to get good with, and I hope that you surpass literally everything I've ever done with this because I like it when other people are better than me. So, stay moist, my friends.